You good? Hello and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker, and I am excited to have a show to start out the year to talk about big goals and how to keep yourself on track and keep yourself from getting overwhelmed with those big goals. And with me today, I have Emi Kirschner, and I'm so excited to have her. We have been interviewing back and forth, for the last couple of years because we have such sort of similar mindsets and ways at looking at things. And I'm excited to get your perspective on this today. And, I'm going to allow you to kind of introduce yourself in terms of, tell us, a little bit about your background and why this topic is important to you.
Absolutely. And thank you. I'm so excited to be here too. Mostly because you're my friend, and yes, we totally have aligning mindsets, and we think, and achieve things very similarly. So honored to be here. Thank you. And a little bit about me. I am speaker, coach, author, and creator of the Tribe of Leaders community, membership community. And it's a place for entrepreneurs to come together and have support, have accountability, and achieve really big goals. And why that's important to me is that I know there are so many people out there who have these really big dreams and really big visions. And as soon as they start to kind of map out or even think about, well, how do I achieve that? They freeze. Yeah, it's like,
freak out, right?
Yeah, right? So one of the things I love doing with my clients is helping them really get clarity around that big vision, and then back it all the way out to what can they start doing right now without feeling like, they're overwhelmed or they're confused or that it's too much, and how to help them move forward with ease so that their vision and their big dream can be reality. So
awesome.
It's so much fun.
It is fun, right? I like that too. And I think it comes from you being a big thinker, that you can help others to not just think big, but actually then to, act in accordance. So let's start there. Let's say somebody is afraid to think big, that they've always kind of set the bar where it's relatively easy. They don't have to stretch themselves. Mm-hmm. How do you, it's a new year, and how do you help somebody to think bigger?
So what I like to do is just keep asking them questions, and you can ask, for the audience listening, you can just continue to ask yourself questions. Well, what's next? What's next? What's next? So that, and when you start to feel like you're going to throw up, that's a great indicator of you've reached a place where not only are you stretched, but it's a big goal or a big dream. I'm going to use those words interchangeably.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing. Having that feeling oh my God, what if I actually accomplished this?
Right.
Or what if this happened? And being a little uncomfortable with that is, I think it's a great thing. I love being in that space, not all the time, but it just creates a fascination and a curiosity of well, what can I do to get there?
Right. Well, I think if you don't think to the point where it's uncomfortable, then it's not big enough. It has to be uncomfortable for it to be big. And somebody once asked me the question, what would you like to achieve but you would fear the most, or something? It was something along that lines. The question was, what would scare you to death?
Right.
And that's an interesting way to think about it, right? Like you said, it's about asking questions to really see what that could look like, right? Like if money didn't matter and you weren't worried about, what you were going to earn from it, what would you do? How big would you go?
Right.
If you took fear out of it, there was no such thing as failure or fear. What would be your ultimate?
Right. And I think that one of the questions you can ask yourself, what would be the next, the bigger thing? What would be even bigger? What would be even bigger? So that
even bigger and even bigger.
Right. So at some point you're getting it world changing stuff, or you're traveling just huge.
Right.
And I think that's so much fun to play with.
It is fun to play with.
Right.
If you don't mind me asking, what's a big goal for you right now?
I have a couple of big goals. For this year, I'm taking on a physical challenge, and my intention and goal as soon as I sign up for it, will be to ride the City to the Shore, the MS 150 in September. So,
cool. I'm going to do that with you. I totally want to do that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So that's done. We're going to do that together. That sounds awesome.
Right now I'm mapping out what do I need to do this week to start with that. So I have like a Peloton bike, and my goal this week is to ride 30 miles.
Awesome.
And do it in 3 like 10-mile increments.
Very cool, because it's working your way backwards, right? You know that that's in October, so if you work your way back, what do you need to do to get there? That's what marathon runners do and whatnot. So that makes a lot of sense.
Right. And I have plenty of time. So like some of the research I did was you could really train for it in 3 or 4 months. I know my schedule's really busy.
Right.
And I also have an old knee injury that I'm not sure how that's going to play into my training. So I'm going to have to kind of take that into account, and I think build more slowly than somebody who does not have a knee injury or an old knee injury. So that's one of them. Second one is with my membership community, is really growing and expanding that this year. My intention is to have 600 members in it by the end of the year. And then always just contributing. And I haven't figured out quite how to measure this yet, but really just contributing to moving or to helping and motivating 1 million entrepreneurs in the next 4.5 years. So
awesome.
Those are my kind of 3 big things. Oh, and move to Philly. That's my
right.
I could hardly wait.
Very cool. So be a city gal.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool.
Ready. For those of you who don't follow me or don't know me, I live out in the suburbs, about an hour outside of Philly right now, and it's been my intention for the last 3 years to move. So my son's finally graduating, and yeah.
Good. Well, those sound amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about overwhelm. Because that can set in for a lot of people, is they set these big goals and they're excited about it. Mm-hmm. But when they think about doing something, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. They just like go into, like you said, that freak out mode, like,
Yeah. So what I see happen with, all of my clients and just people in general is you set this gigantic goal. You're comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then you don't think about how you're actually going to achieve it, right? So maybe you start taking some action, you do something. And I think the perfect analogy is, the person who wants to lose like 50 pounds, for instance, right? They're like, I'm going to lose weight this year. I'm going to get healthy. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And when it doesn't happen in 3 weeks, they get really frustrated.
Right? You're right. That is so huge, because we're such instant gratification freaks, right? Like, show me now or else, it's not going to happen.
Right. Or they lost a little bit and then they gained a pound back because they're weighing themselves all the time. And they're not factoring in that, it can change on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. And having an increase isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? There's some point, for instance, with weight loss, if you're working out, where the weight's becoming muscle, and you may have some fluctuation and increase, but overall you've lost inches, you're feeling better. So it's, how are you measuring too?
Absolutely. That's a great point, is how are you measuring? Because some measurements are not going to be as effective as others.
Right. So that really, I think the 2 big things here are start breaking things down into small little pieces. And it doesn't have to be, every day maybe, but what are you doing week over week? Mm-hmm. And then, allow there to be some ups and downs. That's where growth comes from. If we were all succeeding, every moment of the day, it would get really dull.
It would be, right? Who wants to go see that movie where everything's great and everything's great and then everything's great?
Yeah. I mean, as much as we all want to have only positive, amazing experiences all of the time, some of my best learning experiences, the things that I've really gained the most out of, have been the failures or the places that I haven't done well and I've made mistakes. Right. And I really don't look at anything anymore as failure. They're just learning experiences.
Right. I call it feedback. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm taking in information.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually, there's been studies that have proven that actually going through difficult times and big challenges create greater resiliency. So it's like, it's actually making us literally stronger mentally, because we've found our way through it.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's so important, because the more resilient that you are, the more you can take on and create and really achieve even bigger goals.
Absolutely, because your fear factor, right, isn't really there, because you can bounce back if things don't go your way.
Yeah, exactly. And the interesting thing about fear too, and I think failure, is that it's really only what you're defining in your mind. Like, it's really only how you're measuring it, and you're assigning some meaning to it.
Now,
So
I believe that too, but there's a
yeah,
lot of people listening who go, that's a bunch of BS. That's just positive, positive, positive.
right.
I don't believe that. So what do you say to those people?
Try practicing it. Like, I mean, and that may sound silly, but you have nothing to lose by trying to shift the dialogue that's in your head, because we all have the wah, 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 wah
Right.
in our head saying you
So what
can't.
do I do when it comes up and goes, Penny, you don't have the authority, the skills, the power, the this, the that. You're too young. You're too old. You're too whatever.
It's the end of the world, right? Everything has now blown up.
Ow. So
And
what do you tell the person? How do I manage all of those voices? If those voices are really strong for me and tell me that I'm not good enough and I'm
yeah,
not worthy, and how do I manage that? I have this big goal, but I feel inside like I'm not worthy for it.
yeah. So one of the exercises I love to have my clients do is called my I am list. And I start with having them write 15 to 20 different things that they like about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing what comes out of those lists. And they're all very different and very personal. And it is a great way to help you reframe when that what's going on in your head, of all the really amazing things that you are. And I would suggest adding to it. Like, if you write this list and you get to the 15 to 20, like, add to it every 6 months. I just rewrote mine a couple of days ago, and I think I'm up to like 55 or 60, and I hadn't done it in a while. Like, I usually do a lot of this stuff quarterly, and it had been longer than that. And I was like, oh, I'm really cool. And it's that reframing piece that helps you kind of train your brain into having and experiencing more positivity. So at some point, it's like that place where you're kind of shifting a little bit, where the positivity is becoming more natural to you, and you're experiencing things in a different way, so the want becomes lesser.
Yeah.
And then I think the other piece is just acknowledge that the want part is going to be there, and it's really just not accurate.
Right. You just accept it and let it kind of roll over you, like in meditation, when noise comes around, you kind of hear it and you kind of let it go. Right. I really like that I am list, especially, we're looking at a new year, and being able to remind ourselves, because we're so quick to say what's in the gap, what we don't have, what we didn't do, what's missing. And how great is that when we can just take a moment and remind ourselves of all that we do have, and all the blessings that are in our lives, all the wonderful characteristics that we do have about us, and so forth. I think it's really powerful to start the year that way. Yeah. And then, to set, like, as a setting the frame, like you're saying, for the new year, so that you can then link into why you're worthy of that big vision and big goal, and how come you're going to achieve it.
Exactly. And if you're feeling stuck with that, like, if you just, like, you don't have anything coming to you, go ask 5 of your friends, like, what they like about you, or how they see you. And it is always amazing to have that feedback, because their perception of you is very different than the what in your head.
Right.
And we were just talking about hair, and how different people see us. It's the same thing. Like, it's, I was saying, if you can't see me, I just cut my hair really, really short, and I'm still getting used to it. Everybody loves it. And I'm like, ee. But the perception is that, people have loved the change that I've made, which is great. And eventually I'll get used to it too. So,
right.
But it's the same thing in quieting that noise.
Totally.
Yeah.
So we talked about big goals. We talked about overwhelm, and confusion. So once I have this plan and this map, the last point that we could talk about today is consistency, right? Is lots of people, they set a plan and they do get that far. But then, then the day-to-day comes in and they just don't follow through with the plan that they set. What's one powerful tip that you could offer to help around consistency?
I have two. One is just
great,
right? One is just set priorities, right? What are your real priorities for the year, for the month, for the week, and for the day, right? Regardless of who you are and what you're doing, it's your life and you get to make choices. And you get to prioritize what's really important to you. And that may sound like, no, I have a job and a boss and, all these obligations and kids, right? But you have a choice about how much time you spend on Facebook or, Instagram, or how, the minutes that are you're waiting in line in the grocery store, just as much as you do at your job or with your kids. And what are you doing with that time that is it effective? Is it helping you perform better? Are you feeling satisfied? Right. And if you're not, where can you make some of those shifts? And then my second piece is put everything in your calendar. Like that, the story of overwhelm and confusion really is just that. But we don't take the steps to, really just eliminate the confusion and the overwhelm by putting things in our calendar, by seeing how much time we have available to us to do certain things. And when you do that, then it's amazing how free it is.
Absolutely, because the plan isn't complete until it's scheduled, right?
Right. And I used to be a chronic overplanner. I was the worst case scenario, and I thought I could do, probably 6 months worth of stuff in a day, right? And I was very resistant to, scheduling stuff because I love seeing the open space in my calendar. I have all this time. But then, it pretty much got eaten up with a little bit of, something over here and something over there and whatever. And I wasn't using it effectively to get the things that were really most important to me done. And then I feel overwhelmed because it's like last second. And, I don't want to be all jammed up. And I presume most people, don't.
Right. But that is what ends up happening is there's more stress because you're keeping it in your head, or you've got this big to-do list that you're looking at. And, by planning, and scheduling it in your calendar, it's creating more accountability. Like you said, it's making sure that your priorities are clearly scheduled, and everything else that needs to get done will get done, right? Because it always does. And if it doesn't, then it really wasn't a priority and you didn't make time for it, right? I mean, that's
exactly
just the way that it goes.
Right. We make time for the things that are important to us.
Totally. I was at an event and I remember somebody saying, in realization that, I said, if I were to offer you concert tickets right now to your favorite concert, your favorite musician, but you already had a fully booked day, what would you do? And they're like, oh, I'd reschedule. I'd find a way, right, to move everything around so that they could go to their favorite concert.
Right.
Or whatever. That could be a football game or whatever it is that matters to somebody. They'd figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would too. And then I'd book in the travel time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So those are the tips for success, starting the year, thinking big, dealing with overwhelm, and then also staying consistent. Is there, before we end today's show and hear about where we can contact you and everything, is there anything else that you wanted to share with the audience?
I think just a little bit about tracking and measuring in more detail. And it's so important to do that because that can help you be more consistent. If you know what you have done and you know how long it takes and how many times you need to do whatever activity it is, then you can make smarter decisions and you can pivot more quickly because there's going to be bumps in the road. Life is not, a flat line. I wish sometimes it was, but it is not.
No, you don't.
Right. So, it's, if you know how long things take and you're estimating and you're giving yourself time to do that, and really measure any goal with, how far along are you? Is it taking longer for you to get to that place than not? Don't judge yourself around whether, you're succeeding or not. Just look at it as that information, that feedback that we talked about.
Yeah.
And just move forward and make adjustments. I like to think about it like almost like a train, when you've got all these cars, and somewhere along the train there's kind of like a kink in between one of the trains,
right.
And it's keeping you from moving forward. So as you unkink everything, you get to move forward faster.
Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. People don't like to track because a lot of times, you hear this from a lot of salespeople, right? Is they want to be out with the people. They don't want to be tracking the information, but it's in that information that tells you what's working and what's not working, because we think in our head that we're making a certain level of progress, but until we actually look at the facts and figures, a lot of times there's a mismatch to what the tracking is telling us and to what we think in our head.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's a really important point. I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. And I can say a lot of my people too say like tracking takes so long and they don't like doing the data entry.
Right.
The time that you invest in that, and it really is an investment, is going to save you so much more time with everything else that you're doing. And you'll close more sales, have more progress, make more money, lose more weight, whatever it is you want to insert as the end goal.
Right.
When you're tracking.
Totally.
Yeah.
So how can people get in touch with you? How can they learn more about your community?
Sure. So the best way right now is to reach out to me through thetribeofleaders.com. That shares everything about the membership community. And then you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Emi Kirschner. And it's EMIKIRSCHNER. And I look forward to connecting with everybody.
Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. It was great to be with you.
And thank you all for being here, because without you, we wouldn't really have a show. And also you were given, some tips today that you can put immediately into practice. We heard from Emi that you can ask yourself some simple questions of whatever goals that you've set for this year. Ask yourself, that question of what's even bigger, and really push yourself until you're outside of your comfort zone. And secondly, get yourself in a state of mind with that I am list. I love that. Is, write down at least 15 things that I am and what comes after that. So you can realize really all the different facets of you and all that you bring to the table in accomplishing your goals, whatever they might be. And many more things that were discussed today. But at the minimum, do those things to start out and then see where that takes you. Getting yourself then into a plan, getting it scheduled, and making sure that you've got some means of tracking and measuring your success. So thank you all, and we'll see you in the next episode. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.